Hey College and Career Success, welcome to week 10, double digits, which means we are not that far away from the end of the semester, from summer, all of those positive things. So we are going to be in chapter 8 this week. So as usual, please make sure you check out the lecture video or spend some time with the text itself or the slides so you have some context for the assignments. So this is a very typical week. Once again, you have a discussion board post due by Wednesday for your weekly attendance. You're going to respond to 2 classmates by Sunday. You have a chapter 8 assignment and a chapter 8 quiz. So let's jump right in. Here is your discussion forum prompt. It says, reflect outside of your usual comfort zone and friend group. Think of someone whom you disagree and think about how what they said had an effect on you. So chapter 8 is talking about like communication and conflict resolution and interactions in different situations. And so the reason it says reflect outside your usual comfort zone is because we often will handle conflict with people we know really well differently than we handle it with people who we're not as familiar with. So that's why it's kind of having you try to think of someone who's maybe not in your very close friend or family circle. So maybe it's an acquaintance, maybe it's a work or school friend, maybe it's a family member, but it's someone you don't see very often in your family, or just someone who you might not interact with super frequently. So think about how like a disagreement you might have had with this person and how that impacted you. And then when you were interacting with them, did you use correct etiquette when kind of responding? Did they use it? Did you use it? Did you make sure your response was heard? Were you offensive? So it's just really focusing on the interaction and ensuring that, you're kind of reflecting on it and seeing how it went and maybe how it could have gone better. So just kind of deconstructing that interaction and talking about the effect it had, the etiquette that was used, the responses that were given. So that's your chapter 8 discussion prompt. Make sure you respond to your original post by Wednesday, respond to 2 classmates by Sunday. Again, we're shooting for 150 words. I am still seeing posts that are half of that. So make sure that you're getting as close to possible as 150 words. All right, so then from there we have our chapter 8 assignment. I like this assignment. I think it's always interesting to see how people approach this one. So it's going to open up into a PDF, and it's not one unless you have one that can convert, you can type in it. So for this assignment, you are welcome to get out a Word doc and type your answers, or you are welcome, you can see it says that this is a file or text submission. So you can just type in the comment area, or you can upload a document, whatever is going to work for you. But what you're getting to is they have these examples of communication between a student and an instructor that are not professional for one reason or another. Maybe there's just a lot of typos. Maybe it's the wrong way in which they approach the situation. Maybe they could have worded it differently. So here are the 3 examples. And I'm going to kind of hint at some things too. Communication 1, email. I wouldn't know who that is. If you were emailing me from that address, I would not know who that is. I have over 100 students, so I cannot tell personal email addresses if they don't have your name in it. So that's a big hint right there. But if you read through the email, there are some issues there. So how could you fix that? First of all, would you keep it as an email? If so, how would you rewrite this to make it more in line with what chapter 8 talked about with communication, etiquette, proper interactions with an instructor? Communication 2, this looks like it is done through text message. It starts with emojis, and I lost my paper when I tried to send it. Can I turn it in late? So first of all, would you keep it as a text message? If so, how would you change it? Would you put it to another type of, would you turn it into an email, or would you turn it into a face-to-face interaction? So that's communication 2. And then communication 3, this is face-to-face after your class, but the professor is on their way to a meeting. And so you start talking to them about why you failed a paper. So would you keep it face-to-face? Would you change the time that you're having this conversation? Would you change it to email? Anything like that. So essentially you're just rewriting these interactions to be more professional, to follow etiquette guidelines, and to make sure that you are presenting yourself in a respectable way to get kind of the response that you're looking for from your instructor. So again, you can type those up in a Word doc, or you can just type them in the comment area and submit them. And then finally, your chapter 8 quiz. So here are our questions. Number one, if you are on an outreach team and you've been asked to create a presentation about everyday communication versus college communication. So how you would approach talking to someone just in a very casual conversation versus how you would talk to your fellow students and instructors in a college atmosphere. What would the difference be? What kind of things would you touch upon on how to approach the differences between those types of communication? Question 2 wants to have you reflect on technology considering Reingold's 5 literacies, and they list them right there, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, that means you probably didn't watch the lecture video or the PowerPoint or the textbook. So real quickly, in your textbook, section 8.3, you'll have to scroll down just a little bit. That drives me nuts. You'll scroll down a little bit and you'll see the Reinhold's right here: attention, participation, collaboration, network awareness, and critical consumption. And so it tells you a little bit about each of them. I mean, it goes into even more detail underneath there in more paragraph form, but that's at least a snapshot right there. So I want you to keep that in mind because it says reflect on each of those. What is your most developed and your least developed, and give an example. I can tell when students look at the materials because they'll start talking about like collaboration, but in a classroom setting and not online. These are all technology based. So how is your attention when it comes to online or technology interactions? Participation, all of that is dealing with online. So we're not talking about how well you participate in a face-to-face class. It's talking about your online participation. And that could refer to social media, it could refer to online classes, it could refer to email, anything like that, anything online. So that's all online. I hope I emphasized that enough. So take a look at that if you need to brush up on what each of those mean, and talk about your most and least developed areas of media literacy based on those 5 areas. All right, question 3, communication is a two-way street. Most people are better at speaking than listening. So if you wanted to improve your listening, what 3 strategies would you choose? And basically, why do you think those would be helpful? Question 4, talking about the barriers of communication. What do you need to consider when you realize you're not being understood? So you're talking with someone and you're like, they just don't get it. So what kind of things should you look at for yourself? You know, are you communicating something in a way that is maybe offensive, or you're just not being clear, or you're not being very open-minded, whatever it might be. Look back in the book and talk about barriers to communication if you're not sure what I mean, or some examples of that, and think about, if you're not being understood, what could be a solution. And then finally, we have a little scenario. Urania's professor asked her to stay after class. She sits in the back of the room. Her professor is concerned she's not interested. What factors has she kind of displayed that the professor has determined that she just doesn't care? And how could she communicate a different message during her next class session? So think about it again. She's in the back of the room on her phone. She's probably not paying attention. That definitely communicates a very clear message that I don't want to be here. Now, whether that's what she is thinking or not is different. Her outward communication is kind of saying that. So what kind of things should she do to kind of fix that message that she's sending? It's a nonverbal message she's sending, but it's still a message. So make sure you respond to all 5 questions in 2 to 5 complete sentences. Make sure you answer all parts of it and submit that. All right, so as a quick recap, make sure that you are posting your original response by Wednesday, respond to 2 classmates by Sunday, Chapter 8 assignment, and Chapter 8 quiz by Sunday as well. Have a great week.